Thanks. What I'd like to talk about in my allotted time is try to get a balance between the political reality of what happened in the race in southern Arizona and also kind of a personal journey of where I came from, where I ended up. Two things were happening last spring with the Green Party, and there were both of them were taking up an awful lot of energy for us. One was working on our political platform, and we were intent on having a political platform complete by the time we turned in our signatures and got ballot status, and that didn't happen. You know, we found out, as we always do, that the process was real important to what we were doing. The community-wide process, the input that we wanted to have from the Green community was real important. And but it was taking up a lot of our energy last spring. And the other thing that was the statutory requirements for from ballot status, and they. The state, the legalities really just suck up your energy. And so we knew that if we did get ballot status, we were going to have to run candidates, but we didn't deal with it. We had time from the time that we turned in our signatures to the time that the candidates had to turn in their signatures was about 3 weeks. And so basically when the ballot status committee folded, when we got ballot status, we had a candidate recruitment committee that had about 3 weeks to get to work. And some of the things that we did, we identified certain races that we thought were important. There's a lot of cultural diversity in southern Arizona. We also identified some of the profiles that we wanted to see for candidates, even though we knew that we were going to have to take what we get, because nobody, like Jack said, nobody was coming forward to become candidates. Gender balance, we wanted to have things like gender balance and having people from within the movement that were from the core group of Greens that really understood not only Green philosophy but politics. That was real important. Cultural diversity was important, but didn't look like we don't have a lot of Hispanics or Native Americans that are in our core group, so we weren't sure if that was going to happen. And basically what did happen was that Jack Strasberg and I were the only people that said, well, sure, and Jack and I kind of looked at each other and said, I'll do it if you do it. And that's basically what we did. It was real important for us to not only have one candidate, we didn't want to have a lot because we didn't have a lot of people, and because we wanted to focus our resources, but in another sense we didn't want to just have one candidate, because then we figured with the media, a lot of the attention would be focused on that particular individual and that personality, and we wanted to get a lot more across about what the Green philosophy was all about. And luckily, neither of us had any primary opposition, so we sailed right through the primary. We only needed one vote to get in. The district profile, I ran for the House in District 11. There are 30 districts in Arizona, and each district has one senator, and 2 representatives. So in each district in the House, which I was running for the House, people could vote for 2 candidates. And as it turned out, there were 5. It's a very democratic registration. There was the background of this particular race is one, there was a couple of very liberal Democrats that were in the House, and both of them were retiring to move on to bigger and better offices, one for the Senate and one for County Board of Supervisors. One of them was the one individualist in the House that kept getting reelected. He came out of the anti-war movement in the 60s, and he was, you know, the radical wacko hippie that they called him, the establishment called him, and he was retiring. And so everybody thought, you know, it was a really green district. Everybody thought this would be a great district for a Green to run in. But they redistricted. And matter of fact, after I decided to run, we found out that there was still some problems with the U.S. Department of Justice. I got redistricted by a few blocks out, so I actually had to move about 5 blocks away to run in District 11. There were no big-name Democrats that had come out. Nobody was going to be running for this. Nobody was going to be running for this race that was known. It was a wide-open race, and everybody thought, well, you know, let's go for District 11. When it did get redistricted, it was just as Democratic, but instead of the university academic hippie-yuppie types, it became more rural, more Hispanic, and I'd say not real people that weren't real aware of the issues. They were just working to get by. A little more about the district is it was a real liberal part of West Tucson, and then it went west through Tucson Mountain, kind of yuppie districts, and then it encompassed the whole Tohono O'odham Reservation, which is one of the largest Indian reservations in the country. I think I've heard the second largest, I'm not sure, behind the Navajo Reservation. It also went south to Nogales, part of Nogales, which is a border town, and 80% Hispanic. Most of the people there don't speak English. So basically it went from a good district that a Green could get elected to a real good district for outreach, because it was people that hadn't really been aware of what the Greens were all about. And either way was, we thought, a good thing to do. And then personally, as far as being a candidate, of course, obviously you've met Jack now, so it was gender balance as far as the two candidates that were running. I personally had a lot of mainstream political background. I had worked for Mo Udall, Congressman Mo Udall, for years and years, and in Arizona, he wasn't just, you know, she was a congressional aide. It was Mo Udall. He's a legend in Arizona, so that in itself, you know, is Mo Udall. So, you know, and I say that because that helped in terms of the media and the mainstream politicians and everybody that eventually came on board and supported me. Also, I'm a pretty average size, so I figured there's a lot of people a lot of women I could borrow dress-up clothes from if if I had to, and I did have to. I was a little insecure about my knowledge of issues. I had somebody that helped me to tell me if things matched and stuff, and you have to have somebody like that around. I was insecure about my knowledge of issues. I was insecure about my public speaking abilities, and as soon as I met the candidates that were out there, that was all swept away, because as all the other candidates know, it's, you know, and then in Arizona, I think we've got a reputation as far as politics, and it was definitely reinforced by my experience. It was sad, I mean, for the country and for Arizona. Let's see. We decided soon to go to every forum. Both of us wanted to not miss one, you know, unless we had to, unless there were more than one at a time. I guess one interesting story is that right after we had the ballot status drive, we got on and we immediately had to turn around and get signatures for our candidate, for candidate forms and all those kind of things, and turn that in. And he said, well, we've got to take a little bit of a break because it's going to be a long haul from June till November. And so a couple of us decided to go camping. There was an Earth First rendezvous up in Colorado, and we thought that would be great. Outside of Durango, we're going to go camping for a few days and just relax and then get into it full force. And the day before we were ready to go up to Colorado, I got a letter from the Ajo Chamber of Commerce that wanted everybody, all the candidates, to come down, all the candidates that represent this district, to come down for the 4th of July rodeo. They were going to have a candidate forum the night before, and I thought, oh, great. I said I was going to go to every one, but I really need to relax. And so we did both. We went up to Colorado for a day and a half and camped one night and turned around and drove from Durango, Colorado, straight for 14 hours and got there in time for the forum in Ajo, which was the very first one I did, and it was quite interesting. And then we made just about every one, which was, well, I'll get to that later. We also decided to go really low budget, to not spend much money, to not raise much money. In the state of Arizona, there's a $240 limit, a pretty strict limit on campaign contributions that people could take, and I had decided that I was going to limit my campaign contributions to $20. And there are still people, and I did that, and there are a lot of people that thought that was pretty silly. Because yeah, well, yeah, I'll get on to that. I'll get along to that too. But you know, it made me feel good. It still does make me feel good. But we also thought that, you know, even if by this time it was out in the public, so I was stuck to it anyway, even though a lot of people disagreed with me. But it also still meant nothing unless people found out that I was doing it. I mean, sure, I feel good, but if nobody finds out that I have this kind of a contribution limit, then it's kind of all for naught. It's along the lines of what we were talking about with campaign finance reform. You know, let's start right here at home, and that's what we were doing. And we did get, soon after that, it did get out in the news, and the Weekly had a nice article entitled "A Lean Green Machine," and the whole focus of the article was the $20 campaign contribution limit. She had a lot of remarks in here, like Campbell's campaign expenditure records read like a monk's checkbook, penny ante contributions in one column, miserly expenditures in another. And we did a lot. Jack and I decided at the very beginning we were going to work together as a team in terms of, you know, sharing resources and all that, and we salvaged a lot of wood for our signs from construction sites, and we you know, spent a little extra money on things like non-toxic paints, but we felt like we were doing what we wanted to do, and we didn't spend that much money. I decided, well, we all decided we weren't going to take any PAC money, which is, you know, kind of a moot point, really, too. Even though in the end, when we got endorsed, I actually did get offers from a couple of PACs, the Sierra Club PAC and the National Organization for Women. So the only PAC that we did take money actually was from the Green Party PAC, because the party had to actually file as a PAC. We decided, well, I say we because it was a campaign, and it was, we all decided things together, made a commitment to reach as close as close as we could to 100% of the people in District 11 door to door. And we didn't even target registered voters. We just went door to door, which is a lot of energy. We had quite a few people that put a lot of work into it, but I was there. Every time we went out walking, I was either across the street, you know, or the next street over. And we could have spent money on getting lists and targeting and all that kind of stuff, but as like Jack was saying, a lot of it was the educational campaign, of course, too. So we just decided to go door to door, and I believe that we probably hit close to 70% of the doors in District 11, and it was a pretty rural area. We figured, when Kelly was talking about the size of Indiana, his district, Bruce and I figured out that my district was the size of Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts put together, we think, by looking at our atlas. It's a pretty big district, area-wise, even though there's miles and miles where there aren't any people. We decided to be in people's faces as far as getting endorsements from some of the groups, that they couldn't just kind of ignore us like we were a fringe party, that we weren't going to count and they could get away with endorsing the closest thing that they had to a green, or to an environmentalist or to a feminist or whatever, and ignore the Green Party. So, and we did a pretty good job there. The first endorsement I got was from the Sierra Club, and that was before the primary, where they also endorsed two of the Democrats, and after the primary, if both of them won, they were going to have to figure out which one of them. I mean, they made a real commitment to me that I was going to be endorsed the whole way through. The Arizona Women's Political Caucus endorsed me. The Arizona chapter of the National Organization for Women, both of the daily newspapers in Tucson, the conservative newspaper, the Tucson Citizen, the liberal newspaper, the Arizona Daily Star, the Tucson Weekly endorsed me, the Observer, which is the gay newspaper of Southern Arizona, endorsed me. And the endorsements was, personally and emotionally, it was real supportive because the endorsements kind of trickled in. So every time you start getting kind of worn out and thinking it was all for naught, you know, something like that can really give you an upper, and so you'd get another endorsement. And the conservative paper was very interesting. It was the first one that came out, and we were kind of blown away. I was actually walking door to door, and somebody in a mobile home said, I just saw your name in the paper. They endorsed you. And the look on my face was such a shock that she said, yeah, maybe it was somebody else. She felt a little embarrassed that I was really going to be disappointed. And so I went into her house, and she read it, and her husband was just looking at me so really strangely. But the way they put it was interesting. They named all the Democrats. Another thing is the Democrats, there was it was 50% Hispanic in this district. Jorge Garcia, Hispanic male, was running as one of the Democrats. Elaine Richardson, Anglo female, was running as the other Democrat. They're the two that ended up winning. One Republican, one Libertarian, and myself for 2 seats in the House. So that the newspaper, the conservative newspaper, named the candidates, and then they said Campbell is the most capable of the bunch, even though her philosophy is largely contrary to positions that we favor. Which is bizarre, because if you're gonna endorse somebody that doesn't agree with you, you're going to probably want somebody that doesn't have it together, so they're not going to be able to do anything. So we were kind of blown away by that, and everybody that endorsed me had put me up way out ahead of everybody else, and then kind of had a lukewarm endorsement of the other people, and I was the only one that got endorsed by both of the major newspapers. The conservative one endorsed me, and the nice thing they said about the Hispanic is that he gives a good argument why this district should be represented by a Hispanic. And then the liberal one that said really, really nice things about me, the only thing that they could say about Elaine Richardson was that she agrees with Carolyn on a lot of things. So it was really good. It was really heartening. Of course, that's when you start thinking, you start getting your hopes up, because the media and the mainstream, the people that read the paper aren't the people in District 11 that vote. But, that's who you're seeing day in and day out. We had gotten, back to spending money, we'd also gotten a lot of stuff donated. One of the Democrats that lost in the primary donated all his signs to me, and we sprayed them over and wrote my name on them. There was another guy that was kind of capitalizing on this whole green thing, and his name was Michael Green, and he was running for Justice of the Peace, so his sign said, "Vote Green." And then it had his name and JP and the Democrat at the bottom. He also lost in the primary and donated us his signs. And so we didn't even take the vote green part off. Jack and I split him, and we put Carolyn Campbell underneath, and we put Jack Strasberg underneath. And it was very obvious we had recycled his signs. So Jack was talking about how there isn't a lot of energy for electoral politics, but the beautiful thing was that people weren't really willing to help us organize a Green Party. It's like, well, good idea, hope it works. But as soon as we were actually on the ballot, and as soon as we had filed our papers, people just came out of the woodwork that were working on our campaigns, and they didn't maybe believe anymore in electoral politics now, but they believed in us, and they believed in what we were doing, and they were going to support us. So it was we had a really good, committed group of people. The kind of things that I talked about in the forum, the forums that I went to, we talked about a lot of what we focused on. It's a real conservative state. Was first of all, the small business, local business, that kind of thing, as opposed to the mega corporations coming in, and we talked a lot about economics in a real kind of straight out way, small business versus the mega corporations, and that really it really worked well. That was kind of our front issue. And then, of course, we talked about environmental issues. And the thing that I would always close with, after talking about some of the issues that we were going to be working on, is that simultaneously we have to work on political and electoral reform, because what I can say as one person, whether I'm a Democrat or Green or whatever, if I get in there are some good candidates that are going to come along every once in a while. They're few and far between, of course, but unless, of course, Greens, we start getting in and getting organized and whatever. But we have to change the system, because then it was good. It was really, really good. But it's all for naught. It's all temporary, of course, unless we're also changing the system. And that's what I pretty much promised everybody that I'd be working on full time, simultaneously with all the environmental and social and economic issues. Media. The media was real good to us. I had decided I haven't had a TV. I've never had a TV. I haven't watched TV since I left my folks' house, and I was committed to not doing any TV ads. Even though I don't know if anybody really in the state legislative districts, at least down there, was doing TV. I don't know, because I don't watch TV, but nobody in my district had done it either. We weren't sure about radio. In the end, we had only done one radio ad at a Spanish-speaking radio station. We did an ad in Spanish. Newspapers, the print media was, as the time went on and this, we were gaining momentum, it was like we didn't think that we really needed to do ads, because we were getting a lot of publicity. And the funny thing about the media was that they really were there as we were getting ballot status. The reporters in the field were so supportive. They were so glad to have something like us to report on. Hopefully that happened everywhere. It sounds like it did. And they were out there. They were always think of a reason to come cover us. And then, of course, when we're candidates, and this happened personally too, once you're a candidate, people don't trust you anymore. When you're an activist, you're great, and then you're so committed and everything else, and then you're a candidate and you're some other, there's a hidden agenda the whole time. But that happened with our candidacies too. The media, they felt like they couldn't really cover you, even if it was something really good, really important, and except for a couple issues that we came out on, they covered, but they felt like they had to give equal time to all the other candidates. So it was really harder in a way to get publicity after we became a party and had candidates than before. Another interesting thing about the endorsements, particularly the media endorsements, was I was talking about how this is a real Democratic district. Well, the Democrats, it was a 5-way race in the primary, and it narrowed down to 2. Well, it's always over at the primary in this race. And so the Democrats hadn't really been doing anything. And then when we started getting some publicity and I started getting all these endorsements, especially the front endorsement, they got really scared. And it was really great because all of a sudden, out of nowhere, all these forums I've been to, all different candidates from all different districts were there, except for District 11. I'd be the only one there. And all of a sudden, they both started showing up. And they both started showing up together. And they both started working as a team because they felt real threatened. You know, that's that whole thing that they think we're going to, you know, and their official language, you're going to make a Republican win. But it was nice to see them walking door to door and seeing their stuff indoors. When I went, all of a sudden they were out working. Let's see. That's really, I think, about it as far as the race. The outcome was real interesting in my precinct, which was one of those precincts that used to be in District 11 and still was right by the university. A lot of academics and sophisticated voters. I actually came in second in that precinct, right behind Elaine Richardson. So I would have won in that precinct. There was a couple of other precincts that I won, and the official numbers. You know, there was about a third of the people in my precinct voted for me, and it was up in the high 20s in a couple of other precincts. And then, actually, this is kind of interesting. I spent equal time in all precincts, just walked. Everybody talked Spanish in a lot of the precincts because you had to. They didn't speak English, and didn't show any preference to. We didn't send any mail to anybody except one precinct where you couldn't walk because they were 3 or 4 acre lots. And then, of course, seeing the numbers from precinct by precinct come in, and you know, if you're out there to win, you would have focused on, of course, the kind of people that already knew about you, because that's where I did really well. And it was really sad. I got a lot of votes in some of these precincts. We're talking 1 or 2 or 3% with some of them. So it was really, really good outreach. The chairman of the Tohono O'odham Reservation, I went out there and talked to a lot of people, and he gave me $20 and told a lot of friends. I mean, there's not a very low percentage of people voting on the Indian reservation, but a lot of them voted for me. So really, that's about it. We have been, we feel, especially in southern Arizona, we're a pretty big force in the community now. We've also been offered, Bruce is going to be sitting on the County Planning and Zoning Commission, and I'm currently, and I'm on a citizens committee to search for a new city manager. There's some really weird local politics. They fired the city manager, and you know, and it really seems like we're gaining a lot of momentum, and we're known as a pretty big political force in the area. The only other thing that I would like to mention, it was so powerful to have somebody. I had a couple of people, Darlene, that was local chair, and Bruce, who was one of my best friends, and he was my treasurer, so he did all that grunt work, and that came with me to all these forums. And like I said before, I was insecure. I mean, I was frightened. I was like terribly frightened of doing this, because you put yourself out, you know, and you're representing the party and at the first time around. But also personally, it was frightening. But to have a 1 or 2 people that go with you to everything, that can stand in the back and nod their heads, and they can tell you afterwards that this is the best speech you've ever given, or the next time say, well, I've heard better, but here's some of the things you could do. I mean, personally, there's nothing, and nothing like that. And Bruce was there for the whole time, and I would encourage anybody, you know, of course you're putting, everybody who's been a candidate knows that, your life is on hold, and if it's possible to have a really, really good friend that can also put their life on hold and be right there, it's as close to like a team candidacy as you can have, to have somebody that is that incredibly supportive. And you just can't, I couldn't do it. It always makes me cry when I think about it, but it really helps, and I don't think that you can really do it, really do it from inside without having somebody like that there. I guess anything else I'll say for questions, but thank you very much.
I don't know if you guys are feeling the same thing, but I've just a feeling I'm really, really impressed by the level of the people who have been up speaking for us, and that if the Green Movement is being represented electorally by people like this, we're in good shape. So.